democratic systems. Now, they no longer operate in such a comical manner, particularly in the light of the failure of their attempts to isolate and block Russia with their sanctions and trade embargoes. Moreover, the global south has directly addressed the West's double standards and blatant lies. Nevertheless, Macron attempted to caution Asians regarding the implications of the Ukraine situation. Despite his previous stance against NATO involvements in Asia, he stated that if China wishes to prevent NATO participation in Asian affairs, it must stop North Korea from becoming involved in conflicts on European soil. Now, it is of course astonishing that North Korean soldiers who did participate in battles in the Kursk region, in which Ukraine was included prematurely in Europe and Russia was also considered to be European, serve as an argument in favour of frightening Chinese with European military presence in Asia. Now, before I continue, I would like to make an appeal. If you like and enjoy my videos, you can help me fund the channel and my website SCOBRICSInsight.com, and you can do this by making a small donation, which is done by clicking on the thanks button at the bottom of the video screen. Every donation gets a personal thank you from me, and I'm thanking you all now for watching. Also set the alerts so you get notified when I post a new video, and keep the comments coming because I do love to read and respond to all of them. Now, you have to take into account that China has quite a large number of American military bases in places close to it, like Japan and South Korea. In fact, both are effectively still occupied territories in the same way as Germany is in Europe since the Second World War, or in Korea since obviously the Korean War. Now, European NATO countries, France and the UK, for example, provide the Americans with military infrastructure in the Indo-Pacific region. The Chagos Islands, for example, are a good illustration of that. Plus, Britain is participating in the openly anti-Chinese AUKUS, which is Australia, United Kingdom, US, and Italy and Britain are developing a sixth-generation fighter together with Japan. Now, Macron assured the assembled throng that NATO is not present in Asia. I mean, he would like to clarify whether Europeans are providing assistance to Americans in their efforts to contain China. Now, it's evident that the measures implemented do not align with the standards set by the US, because there's a clear absence of comprehensive trade restrictions imposed by Europe and any limitations on Chinese investments in technology that are crucial for ensuring compliance with the US diktats. Plus, it's illogical to expect China to exert any influence over the North Koreans. I mean, after all, Kim Il-sung is entirely independent of external forces, and Beijing will not exert pressure on Pyongyang in view of the participation of the Korean People's Army in battles on Russian soil. That's not only because it's illogical and doesn't align with Chinese interests, but it's also because the Chinese people do not place much trust in European promises and instead focus on tangible actions. I mean, it's evident that China is keen to reduce the US's reliance on the US. However, in this strategic approach towards Europe, China takes into account the gradual involvement of NATO, particularly its European component in Asian affairs. Now, it's not possible for Europe to completely try and break away from the Americans. The most thing that they can do is maybe delay the process and limit the amount of the influence that it has. Now, it's obviously that Europe is also reluctant to sever its ties with China. In this regard, Macron is just attempting to find a justification for the Europeans being American lapdogs and acquiescing to their pressure. I mean, he even openly admits the ongoing disagreements between the US and China represent the primary global security concerns at present. He said, "We are being compelled to take a position on this matter, and if we proceed with this course of action, it will result in the destruction of the global order and the systematic dismantling of all the institutions that were established in the aftermath of World War II with the aim of preserving world peace. Now, typically Asian leaders, particularly those from Southeast Asian countries, who voiced their reluctance to choose between China and the United States, and you cannot blame them. But they have to remember they are genuine in their approach, and Macron, echoing the sentiments of the Asians, lacks the determination and resolve to counter the pressures he's been exerted on by the Atlanticists. I mean, occasionally he himself adopts a particularly radical Atlanticist proposition. I mean, look at what his attempts to blackmail Russia by threatening to introduce European military contingents into Ukraine territory and fight actively against the Russians. Now, we already knew that that was a bluff, and it's now irrelevant, as Paris and London have subsequently encouraged the Kiev authorities and reduced the impact of Trump's pressure on Zelensky. Now, it's evident that Macron has effectively undermined the prospect of the peace process, and he's also declared that the US's alleged reluctance to reach a peaceful settlement will be seen as a test of trust for Trump. Should they decide to impose any new sanctions against Russia, that will be supported by the EU. Now, it's a matter of concern to actually look at the potential consequences if the US president doesn't appear that he thinks that the French trust him. I mean, but Macron would no longer be the two-faced, mincing, metrosexual soy boy clown slapped around by his older wife if he didn't not immediately state the precise opposite regarding the consequences for the West as a whole. I mean, if the US and the Europeans are unable to resolve the situation in the Ukraine promptly, which they're not, I believe their ability to manage any crisis in these regions will be significantly undermined, and they already have. Everybody knows NATO is a paper tiger. Now, in the context of the trust of the West in Asia, it's important to note that the trust in the West has already experienced a significant and steady decline over the years, to the point where it's pretty much already gone. Now, there's a number of reasons for this, including the West's behaviour towards Russia. Now, it's of particular importance to note that Asians perceive the Atlanticists attempt to utilise them in these anti-Chinese coalitions, and they categorically reject this, as well as efforts to involve them in the blockading of Russia. Now, given in the context of Ukraine, the settlement as would be defined by Macron, that was what they are looking for as a victory for the West, i.e. the forcible incorporation of Russia into an Atlanticist subservience. And it's reasonable to conclude that the probability of that outcome is absolutely negligible. So in other words, the level of trust in the West in the East is going to drop below the minimum critical level, and it's never going to be possible to reverse this trend. They will not trust them. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Also share with others who might enjoy the videos, and if you want to help me out and make a donation, click on the thanks button at the bottom of the video screen. Thanks for watching. See you all again soon. Thank you.